All right, team. So this is Raj here. Can you hear me? All right. So let's see how many of you here today. Good evening, good morning, like from wherever you are here. Thanks for joining. So today let's have a quick look at what this AWS developer training is going to give you, and how you can start knowing the cloud. Before that, I'm sure that you all have access to a chat. Can you please let me know about your background a little bit, like are you from IT background, or you just starting with the cloud, or if you have cloud experience before, or if you have any other cloud experience like Azure, GCP, can you please put something for me? Can you just choose everyone in your chat box and give me your background, please? That will be really helpful. While let me introduce myself, and this is Uptaught. We are here because this is a demo session for a training with AWS Developer. Okay, so we are going to look at what is this training is all about, what this will give you, what is in it for me, right? As a student, as a learner, what is that I will get out of it, right? How does it going to make change, make different to my day-to-day work, right? So that's about it. And we'll also talk about the course a little bit, and right, so we'll actually talk about AWS. What is AWS? What is the Amazon Web Services? How it is different from others, and we'll talk about some basic concepts, right? We are actually giving a lot in the session just to understand the basics of cloud. So even though if you are just new to cloud, this is the best time to start learning it. Okay. Um, yeah, please keep your responses coming. Thanks, Manish, for responding there. I'll keep looking at this one. Um, okay, so less about myself. I'm Raj. I'm an AWS Solution Architect Associate certified, also Database Associate certified. I'm also an ex authorized instructor used to be, and I'm also having around 17 years in IT experience. Okay, so with all that, I do take trainings as well, where we have been associated with Uptaught before. Um, you know, we used to take trainings, which helps at people, which empowers people to get onto the modern technologies and do better, right? So I've seen so many people since they've started their cloud journey, whatever the prior experiences, irrespective of that, we see that there's a value increase into it. Okay, so about this course, so you can go to uptaught.com, like probably you'll get a very good idea over there. So it's been given there. Let me just quickly bring this one up. Right. So this is the website. So there is, if you go and look for certification trainings, so all these topics were given here at detailed ones. So right. So we'll just come back and talk about that a little later. But these topics are very closely, to whatever the market, right? So we will be giving up the very latest and hands-on training to it. But let's take a step back there, right? What is that you need before I start a developer course? I need to have any one programming knowledge. It says it's Python here, right, as a programming knowledge. But what I think is that if you have a Java, Python, or even Node.js, uh, of any programming knowledge is what we need, so that you can easily understand and code into AWS, right? So who can be the audience? Who can take this training, right? Beginners, I never know about cloud before. This is the first time. Fine. And I'm been working as an architect or a developer for some time, but not any done any certification. It is for you. And if you are working on cloud, that if you want to upskill into a cloud, or if you want to make a job change moving on to cloud, or if you're in a company where you're all the people are migrating your databases, your services to cloud, so then you might want to take this training. All right, fantastic. So what is that you will get out of these trainings? One thing is for certain is that unlike the other places, you can find videos all over internet and stuff. You will get a good hands-on. So that is what I can guarantee. So we'll get a very good hands-on of all the core services that we'll be using, right? And another use case scenario, and how do you apply this knowledge, right? Having knowing the service is different, and how to use that is a different, right? So the combination of this course will help you with knowledge as well as how to use those services, right? That's very important in terms of especially for the developer one. Okay, right. So I see people studying, people who has been studying, just starting. I'm also seeing a tutor here as a Java developers, someone who's already into artificial intelligence and machine learning, right? Uh, I think this is the variety of audience that I have today. I appreciate you responding over there. Thank you so much. Just hold on for until the end of the session if you have any questions. But you can put your questions as well. But I'm going to take a pause after 5 to 10 minutes to come back and look at the chat and respond to you. Okay, so if you have any questions, please put it in the chat box. But wait for me to look at the chat after every 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes time. I'll take a pause. I'll look at the chat. I'll try to answer, right? But you can just keep putting your questions there in the chat box. Oh, right. Let's start with this one, right? I'm going to go one step ahead before. I'm going to ask you to put 3 words which defines cloud for you. What do you think is a cloud? A 3 word that comes to your mind. Please put that in the chat box here. Can you do that, please? I see, many people that the responses are a little less. Can you please chat? Whatever comes to your mind, 3 words. Okay. So Saida just says it's a storage. Just storage is just one part of cloud. Yes, fantastic. Right. Can you just tell me what do you think is cloud? Online storage. Amrit, thank you. Manasa says it's a hosting. Hosting what? Right. So hosting a lot of things, right? Yes. Cloud is network usually present in a remote location. Manish, right? Security, IaaS, PaaS, SaaS. So I think it's Vindhyachal saying that's infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Yes, absolutely fine. It's a e-storage, hosting services again, easy to access from where you can. But let me give you another perspective. Thanks for answering, all of you. Thank you so much. So it lets you treat your infrastructure. What is the infrastructure? How many of you seen movies like in Mission Impossible where Tom Cruise goes up and down to steal something from a data center? Even this Burj Khalifa movie, I forgot the Mission Impossible 4 or 5, right? So where you enter into a data center to steal something. It's a very famous scene in most of the movies, right? Any movie name that you want to give it up here? Which movie shows you the data center? What do you see here? Very similar to the lot of racks and lights. Any movies, Indian, English movies that you see in a data center? Can you start typing it over here? It can be in any language, I don't mind. Anyone remembers? Okay, so that's the infrastructure, right? So you need to have a physical infrastructure in place. I need to have a data center, your access controls, your building, your power, your backup, and you need to, set up all this thing for a long time. Maharaja says Matrix. Yes, of course, my Matrix Reloaded, and even this recent, Matrix also will have a lot of computer-related data centers. Thank you, Maharaja. So what I mean to say is that setting up this infrastructure has been traditionally a pain point, right? We have to any purchase with any data center providers or something. But what cloud helps you to do is just like writing a piece of Python code. You don't really need to do anything, right? You just have your systems. You just start typing 10 lines of code, click on execute. It's going to get executed. Very simple. So get your infrastructure, treat your infrastructure just like a software. It lets you treat your hardware as a software. That's the biggest advantages of cloud computing. Okay, so that is very important so that you can enhance, recreate, do a proof of concepts where you can play around it. If you don't like it, you can throw it around. Okay, so that's what and biggest change cloud computing gives you from traditional computing methods. Okay, why everyone talks about cloud nowadays? Like I know it's very late for anyone who's joining new if you are working in a company, but if you are studying companies, that cloud has been incorporated into your curriculums now. So why this is so important? Why everyone moving to the cloud? Imagine that you walk into a store, you can get your work done simply, right? Without really owning any of the stuff. Okay. So if you want to run a 10 lines of code, it will take 5 seconds. What do you need? You need a computer first. How do you run a code? 5 lines of code in at home. You need a laptop, right? Laptop, now desktops are gone. So you need a laptop. You need to purchase the laptop, or you have to rent the laptop. You have to keep it there. You need a power source, right? You need a keyboard. You can have a mouse if you are using, big screens you need to use. You need to have all of this. But a simple 5 lines of code, which takes 5 seconds to run, you don't have to own anything. You don't have to pay anything upfront. You just go create an account in AWS and execute, and you'll be billed only for that 5 seconds of code that what you write. How easy it is, right? That's what the cloud providers does for you, right? So they invest a lot of infrastructure at the all over the world, right? And they can provide the services cheaper. We'll come back to the benefits to talk about more that, right? But everyone is moving to the cloud base because you don't have a maintenance, you don't have upfront costs, you don't have a maintenance and hardware setups, data centers, and all of this. Everything is handled by these big cloud providers. Okay, cool. Also, they have different pricing models, right? Prepaid, postpaid, just like your mobile, your network does, right? Cloud is also a different pricing models. Let's talk about the cloud computing as a sub-service. What all they provide service? Okay, so infrastructure as a service. So what do you mean by infrastructure as a service? Can someone remember what is infrastructure as a service? The typical data center, right? A company will host a large data centers. So if you want to run some virtual machines, you go and purchase that. They provide that infrastructure, your basic compute, networking, storage as a service to you. That's the infrastructure as a service. Okay. So the hardware has been rented for you. A machine has been rented for you. That's infrastructure as a service. Platform as a service. What is a platform as a service? It's not only the infrastructure, also the software that you need to run, right? So that's a platform as a service. Can someone explain and give an example for a platform as a service? Anyone can guess? RTS is okay. Google. Google itself is a platform as a service. It's not. It's a software as a service or platform as a service. Okay. Salesforce, software as a service. I think when I'm talking about platform as a service, right, it typically handles the hardware plus operating system, right? Virtual machines, VMware. You know about VMware? People have seen VMware, yep. So they are as a platform as a service, right? But many of you talked about Salesforce, that we have a Freshworks, we have what do you call SAP, right? These are all known as software as service. They provide the software as well as a service to you. Snowflake, you can own a database on the cloud. You don't have to pay anything that immediately. You don't have to have any infrastructure. So the software is given to you as a service, right? So that is what we call as a software as service. So these were the terms used when we talk about the cloud computing. Any questions, please do let me know. So what else that cloud computing provides you? Resource pooling. What does that mean? So I have 10 servers. If anyone is requesting for for 6 servers, there are other 4 servers still there, right? When there is more demand, as soon as I release one server, that can be used by anyone else. So you can pool the resource around. If anyone is not using, that can be used by anyone around the world. That's what we call as a resource pooling. Okay. And here on demand service, whenever you need a compute power for 10 minutes. You can do that in AWS. You can go and start an EC2 instance, run it for 10 minutes, close, and you'll be billed only for the 10 minutes. So it's an on-demand service, a large network access. Okay. So the large network access is where you will get all across the globe, right? The entire network is running in something called AWS backbone, right? So there is a lot of regions, and all the regions are connected together, and it's available all over the globe. So there's a large network access. A measured services that you can actually measure the services and pay for only the services that you use, right? Everything is measurable in terms of storage, that the compute seconds, and everything is can be measured easily, and automatically most of this has been done by AWS. All the maintenance and activities has been done in AWS, so the maintenance is easy for you. Okay, so what are the biggest benefits of cloud computing, right? I see a 6, so I'll give you an answer to remember this easily, right? So when you go back and see this one, just hold on there. Imagine you are going to buy some gifts for your, right? So you're buying gifts. So what are those buying gifts is your benefits of AWS. So when you buy AWS, you're actually buying some gifts. What does that mean? B stands for benefit from massive economies of scale. What is this B? So you would have seen it, right, in many places. So when you purchase in bulk, you will get cheaper price, right? How do I example? So big stores will be able to give you a lot of discount than the small store. The reason is they'll be selling at the massive scale, right? Similarly, AWS have a very big infrastructure all over the globe, right? They invest a lot in cutting edge technologies. They are running the state of art data centers, and they have a large customer base so that they can give you the services at a scale which is cheaper, right? So that's what we call as benefit from massive economies of scale. Next, G. G stands for go global in minutes. From 2 to 20 minutes, any services across AWS will start, right? It starts from 2 minutes to 20 minutes time. So that's the maximum time that you need to, start running your application. That's amazing. We used to wait for 2 months, sometime, to 6 months time to bring up a web server, database server up and running, install patches, install softwares. We used to take out to six months. I remember in 2005, it's more than 6 months to bring up web application up and running. Okay. Can you imagine about this? Right. So we get everything done in 2 to 20 minutes time. Okay, cool. And the next one is about I. Okay. So increase in speed and agility. How does it help you to increase speed and agility? For example, I have two ideas where I want to do a solution with the big data, where I want to do that same solution with the data warehousing. Okay. So normally to purchase these hardwares and softwares, it is not easy to purchase them, install your softwares and try out. Then you don't want to do a recon. Earlier, there is no space for making mistakes. But now with cloud, it's all about trial and error, right? At the same time, we are working in agile environment at a sprint which lasts 2 weeks time, right? Before the sprint, there are two teams who will work on these two different proof of concept. One guy will create an EMR machine. EMR is Elastic Map Reduce, which is a big data. So they will try their solution on that. At the same time, in parallel, there is one more team who will start with Redshift. It's a data warehouse solution, database available in AWS. So both the team within 14 days, I mean, actually 10 business days, will determine which one works better. Then they will take a call. Okay, this particular application is not good enough to run it in the big data. So probably Redshift is the better option. We'll go and use the Redshift. So this increases your speed and agility, also allows you for another I, which is innovation. It's not given here, but I have seen it myself. When we are not worried about making mistakes, when you are not even worried about trying something new, right? When you have this opportunity of on demand and quickly, reproducible infrastructures, you can even go and innovate a lot of stuff, right? So after the cloud has come, the boundaries are limitless. The people are innovating more and more, very innovative solutions nowadays. Okay. And then F stands for focus on what matters, right? Sometime you just have to work on your application, your code. You focus on the code that you're writing and ensure it is perfect and fantastic. You don't have to worry about maintenance. You don't worry about cost. You don't worry about infrastructure, right? You don't worry about, upskilling people there for that, right? Because all these things are handled, most of the maintenance are handled by AWS, right? So you just focus on what you need to do, which is your application, writing your mobile application, web application, or your databases, it doesn't matter, right? You focus on what it does matters, right? The next one is a trade capital expense for variable expense. I'm doing a startup, right? We are in a startup era. I'm creating a company tomorrow, right? I don't have any expenses. Like I can't just invest huge 1 crore or a 50 lakhs into my infrastructure, right? I can start a company from my home. I can be on a cloud. I can start providing a web service from there. The bill will come after a month, right? So you don't have to invest a lot to start anything here. That's what we call as a capital expense. Rather than doing that, so we can go for a variable expense. We can, as much as you use, you have to pay, right? So that is what T stands for, and S stands for stop guessing your capacity. Before you start anything, can this application can host 100 servers? Can it host like 10,000 users? Can it accommodate like 1 lakh users? You don't have to worry about it. We have something called auto scaling. We'll just talk about that. We'll start with 10 users. It's fine. We'll start with a solution. So the moment the more and more user bases are increasing, you can also scale up your application so that it will accommodate more users. You don't have to worry about capacity at all. Any questions, team, in terms of benefits? Remember, buying gifts, BGIFTS. Okay. So you can just Remember these words and you can talk to your interview. If you're having any interview, people will be happy to listen, right? It's like buying gifts. Okay, good. Let me clear this one. Give me a minute. So I think someone is asking, like, can you explain about yourself? Yes, I just did. So probably you will have joined a little later. So my name is Raj. I am an architect. I have 17 years of experience in IT industry, around 7 years in training. I have a couple of AWS certification, working in cloud for 7 years. I also specialize in data and cloud and architecture. Thank you. That's it about me. So let's move ahead with this benefits that we just looked at as a buying gifts. So what else is that? Different deployment models. What is a deployment model? Simple. How do I implement this cloud? Where this will run? This is a very basic question, right? Yes, I will share it at the end of the time. Yep, I will definitely do share my. Okay. So the question is to you to see the cloud computing deployment models, right? So the question comes in where this is running. Is it running somewhere in the cloud, or is it running in my company, or is it running in my house? That's a question for you, right? So that's what we call this as deployment models. The one thing is it can be run on the cloud. So what I mean to say is it's a cloud means this is running remotely on the AWS infrastructure. Of course, it's a physical hardware. The AWS is hosting somewhere else, but you have no idea where it is. Okay, all you know is a region. So we know that we have region Mumbai, but we don't know where is the data centers are because they are not open to public. There's a kind of a secret they keep maintained, right? So that is running on a cloud means it's like a completely remote place it is running, right? And they have something called on-premise. We also call it as a private cloud, where most of the services will be running within your on-premise data centers. We do have services like our Outpost. We do have services, which you can do a VPN with your on-premise network is completely private, so that only your organization will have access to, right? So this is called a private cloud. Everything will be running on the on-premise. We all the other ways call it as a private cloud. All the services will be running within your on-premise. Then the most famous model, which is a hybrid, a combination of two. A services, some running in the cloud, some services running in your own office data center, which we call it as a hybrid network. So example, a web server is hosted on the cloud. Your database service is still there in your on-premise data center, right? So these two are connecting to each other and talking. So to give you a hybrid model. Okay, just give me a minute. Sorry. So good, right? So I'm going to skip this introduction to AWS because we've been talking about AWS in the cloud so far, right? And one thing which I want to give you is AWS or even any cloud providers give you so many different services. There's more than 25 different categories of services, 1,000 plus services provided by AWS. We call them as building blocks, right? The reason is being, imagine that people knows Lego blocks, right? So you put those building blocks in a different shapes together, right, to build something like a home. Okay, so this is what your solution is, right? This home is your solution, and there are different building blocks that you need to do. So some of the building blocks could be for your compute, for your CPU, and some of the building services can be for your storage. There are different storage services available, and some of the services is for network, and you can have different databases, and altogether you'll be building a particular solution, right? So that is what very important. Rather than knowing the services, how to use the services practically is very important in cloud, any cloud if you take. Okay, so remember, the AWS is kind of a building blocks, the Lego blocks what my kids used to play, right? You put different shapes to make it as a solution. Similarly, you have to use a lot of the services to create a solution. So one, you need to know the services. Second, you should also know how to use them, when to use them. Okay. So what are the applications what we can create in AWS if you are new to AWS or like even to cloud? Some of this you might be there. It may be we can use a website hosting, right? Media sharing, your videos, Netflix, Prime, all running in cloud, right? Amazon Prime, everything is running. And we have content delivery and media distribution, CDNs, storage, backup, disaster recovery, we can run computing, search engines, social networking. There are so many things, not only this. Okay. So with that, I'm just moving ahead a little faster. So in terms of things, there is something called foundation services. What do you need for a computer? Okay. So can just someone type me, what do you need for a computer? What do you need? Earlier we used to have something called CPU separate. We can carry it home so that we can assemble it on. Now it's all coming in laptops. So not many of you aware. But can you just tell me what you need for a computer? What are the services that you need? You need a CPU for compute. We do have service very similar to in the cloud, right? You need a network. Yes, we do have a storage. You need a hard drive, right? Very similarly, we have storage services provided by AWS as well. We call them as a foundation services. So it is important that all of us understand the foundation services of cloud before we go and build solutions on it. And this is what I talked about, right? A variety of categories of services. The few services that you need to look out that you people are using very often is analytics, right? Application integration, your compute, and your IoT, I don't know, Internet of Things, right? Migration and transfer. So there are different categories, but these some of the categories which is called out, like security, identity, and compliance, are very much used across in all projects. Okay, let me introduce you, give you some background about how this AWS global infrastructure is going to look like, right? So we have something called regions, and then after region we have something called availability zones. Okay, so the availability zone will contain something called the data centers, right? Regions, down below availability zone, down below you have data centers, right? Let's have a good look at the global infrastructure. Region is nothing but a geographical area, like a London, Mumbai. We know it's known as a region, right? So within the region, you have something called an availability zone, right? We'll come back to the availability zone, but in India, we have only one region, which is in Mumbai. There is one more region which is going to come up in Hyderabad. Okay, so the region will have multiple availability zones inside it. So what is availability zone? Okay, I'll come back here. What is availability zone? Yeah, availability zone is consists of one or many data centers. At least minimum more than one data centers will be there. What is a data center? A data center will contain a lot of servers, hardwares, correct? So the availability zone will contain 1 to 3 data centers strategically located around that region, what they call it, right? We will not know where the data centers are located. It's a logical group of the data center. So if anything is failing within the data center, we'll keep within the availability zone. Okay, here in this diagram, what you see on the right side is your availability zone. And so each availability zone have 3 data centers, 1, 2, 3, right? In case if something is failing and virus is affected the data center, so the fault will escalate only up to this availability zone. This will not affect the other 2 availability zones will be up and running, right? So that is the reason why they created availability zone. This is for the high availability. So if you won't have a web server running here and there, one web server is running here, one web server is running here. So when this goes down, still you have the other web server running, so your website will still work, right? That's a very basic concept. Okay, so it is recommended whenever we are setting up everything, we will be replicating the data and resources across this availability zone for reliability and high availability. Okay, we'll be seeing that more when we start actually looking into that. Right. So what is else? At data centers, where do you actually create a data center? So data centers are owned by AWS, right? You can't really choose a data center. What you can choose is only up to availability zone. But this is for your information. A data center typically consists of 50,000 to 80,000 physical servers, right? So they are located strategically across these regions, and they are very secure. They are not open to public. People will not know where the data centers are located. You will not see any names like AWS data center anywhere in those things, even if you find, and they got multiple layers of security so that everything will be very secure. But let's go back to the slide which I showed you a little earlier. Why do you want to choose a region, right? So now I know that this is a data center. On top of data center, we have something called availability zone. On top of availability zone, we have something called region, right? When you have this, you need to know why you need regions, why people are creating a region across globe, right? So, you must be knowing by this time, the regions are located in London, right? Mumbai, right? North Carolina, US East 1, right? And Ohio, but multiple places, the regions are available. The reason being, there is a lot of data governance and legal requirements. In US, we have a data governance, something like a HIPAA, right? And in Europe, we have GDPR. They are rules and laws meant to protect the individual data. This is for the Health Insurance Portability Act. This is for the Europe, personal information rules, right? And that for that reason, where you can't take the data out of the country and store it somewhere else, right? So that requires a data and legal governance. So you need to choose. For example, if you're hosting anything in Europe, you might just want to host it in London, especially UK. You don't want to keep it anywhere else because your data governance policies will not allow that. Second thing is proximity to users. If you have a website, majority of the guys are you working in India, your users are 90% of your users in India. Obviously, it makes sense that you will host a website in the Mumbai region, not in US region, because that's a latency. Latency is that how fast the website is coming to the customers. Okay. But again, all services are not available in all regions. There are certain services available only in few regions. So for example, recently there is something called Redshift serverless. The Redshift serverless is available only on a specific region as a preview, not available in all regions, right? And another important thing is the cost will vary at each region. This might be interesting. You might be thinking, right, why it is varying? It depends on various factors that includes the infrastructure cost, the regional place, where how it is, the cost of the countries, taxes, government policies, right? So at each different place, the cost will vary. I sometimes found most of my storage cost in US is cheaper than storing that in Mumbai. It can happen to you as well, right? The cost will vary across these regions. That's a very important point to remember. So any other questions, team, before we proceed further? Okay, so it's 8:37. I'm going to just quickly jump over to a few more slides. So this is very important. If you're starting a journey here, right? Sometimes some people I've seen coming to developer exams. So you are starting afresh, by just starting the cloud, right? So there is a different path that you can traverse. You need to know, how do I go, right? You are in a developer associate exam. So this is the exam that we have to take after you go through this training, all right? So this is for the developer path. So we are in a developer path where we will be knowing how to develop cloud application on AWS, right? There is something called Cloud Development Kit, CDK, SDK, Software Development Kit, right? We have CLI, API. Using all this, how we can do programming is what we will know in this particular one. We also have Cloud Practitioner just to get yourself familiarized to AWS, right? And then we have something called Architect, Associate, and Professional paths. And we have SysOps and DevOps Professional. Here, this is for the administrators and infrastructure support people, this one, right? But if you take any one of the associate exams, like a Developer Associate or Solution Architect Associate, then you can choose your specialty paths. The specialty paths are normally, involved in this is called data analytics specialty, security engineering special, and this is a networking specialty, or you can go for a database specialty or storage specialty or your machine learning specialties. Okay, there are different paths, but you need to have one associate training, either developer or architect, right? So you can take any one of the associate here, unless if you are into support, infrastructure support, you can take sys operations associate, sysadmin associate, sorry, right? So you are here, you will be taking a certification called AWS Developer Associate, right? So that's very important, in terms of development into cloud. Any questions here in terms of your learning paths? Okay. Do let me know if you have any questions. Probably I'm not seeing questions there, but if you have any questions there in your learning path, I'm happy to answer there as well. Okay. Right. Let's understand what this developer does, right? So normally, if you are a developer, you'll be responsible for designing applications, developing application, maintaining and enhancing. This is like enhancement sprints, right? So you need to understand at the core AWS services, the foundation services, and also know about the development tools. Very important, right? So as a developer, you not only understand what is AWS is, you'll also understand how to work with the different development tools to create a solution on AWS, right? So that is also you will learn along the way. Okay. So as for any good AWS developer, you need to have a good decision-making skills. Okay, let me just clear this one out. Right? You should be able to know different services, how to work. You should have at least one programming skill. So I prefer Python, but if you know Java also, that will do. Right? If you have any other programming knowledge, we have that's also there. But Python is something that I would recommend for everyone who's not having any program knowledge. It's easy to get used to. Okay. So in this course, in the developer series, you will develop and deploy applications on the AWS platform. Most of the courses will work on Python and Linux. The reason being, they're the simplest and most efficient way to start learning. Okay. You can ask, why can't I do that in Windows? I've been using Windows for long, right? Don't worry. So you'll get used to Linux as well, because most of the servers and everyone that people are using deploying web applications are running in Linux machines, okay, not on Windows. So obviously that we will get you up to speed to what it is being most widely used. Okay, so that is what we'll do. And I got a question from Oppo A4S7. I don't know the name. I'm sorry. So what exactly AWS? What is exactly the role in AWS as programmer? Okay, I'll tell you. A solution architect will design something like, hold on, I'm just trying to get my pen working. A solution architect will tell, okay, so you got a user, right? So the user will access a CloudFront. So from the CloudFront, you host an EC2 machine and run a web server, right? So the EC2 machine web server will reach out to Amazon RDS database servers, take data from there and display. So this is your solution architecture. Okay. What does it help you? Right? Who will develop it? How do I develop it? Right? So you need to know how to create a code for your web applications. You should know how to write a code so that the CloudFront can be utilized. You should know how to develop an RDS. How do I implement an RDS, right? So the web application has to connect to RDS, right? So the RDS, how do I implement, programming in RDS? What are the databases it supported, SQL or no SQL? So across AWS, we use different tools, right? One is called CDK. This is called Cloud Development Kit. The other one is called SDK, AWS SDK. This is called Software Kit, otherwise known as Boto 3. This is the Python library, Boto 3. Okay, it's not only Python library, Java library. You can use any different programming language. It doesn't matter, right? So then we have something called command line interface, CLI. Then whatever you will be seeing is called console, your website, AWS website. These are the different options that you can access AWS services, right? And you'll be doing a lot of programming as well, right? Using SDK and even using CDK, you'll be writing a lot of programming as part of this AWS Developer Series. Okay. For example, if I say EC2, you should be able to create a EC2 machine via programming using SDK with few lines of code, right? We can always do that in the console. That is a solution architects will do, right? But normally as a developer, you will start writing 10 lines of code so that you can bring a machine up and running, execute a command to deploy a web server, and then just, start and restart that one. Okay. So throughout this course, this is what's going to happen. Your instructor will introduce you to general AWS concepts such as, region, availability zone, virtual private clouds, and security groups. Right, this is very basic foundation which I was talking about. But there is a lot many more to it. Okay, but we will work across this one. Right, so this is not mentioned. CDK is not mentioned there because now the CDK also came. We'll be using APIs, CDKs, CLIs, or Cloud9 or any IDE that Visual Studio Code or something. Using that, how do I develop AWS programming is what you will learn out of it. Okay. Again, I'm going to skip that. So if you're here, you already know that why AWS jobs are much in demand. The data engineer, data analyst on AWS is much in demand, and they are obviously getting higher salary. So you can just look at the internet and try to understand this. I'm not going to give you any yarn on that. Yeah, that is something that you already know. That's why you are here. Okay. So let me quickly show you how easy it is to run 5 lines of code. Okay. So we have another 10 minutes. Within 10 minutes, I'm going to show how easy it is to run 10 lines of or 2 lines of code. Anyone remembers the Hello World program in C, C++, Java, Python, doesn't matter. But we just print Hello World somewhere, right? We'll do that one. So we have something called Lambda. Lambda is a function as a service. You can run 10 lines of code without really owning any infrastructure, computer, CPU, memory, storage, nothing you need to have, right? So go to AWS. If you have your account, you can just log in, right? Click on the Lambda. So Lambda is the function as a service. You can start executing functions. Create a very simple function, start executing the code, it will run, and you'll be billed only for that. Even with a free tier, the Lambda will be free for for long, right? So I have a free tier account, which just got expired, a couple of years back, but still I'll not be, build too much. So I'm going to create a Lambda function. Yeah, a few lines of code. A hello world function is what I'm going to write. I'm clicking on create a function, right? This is Lambda. In Azure, it will be like a functions, right? But here we call it as a Lambda function, right? So here I can author from scratch. I can start writing with the hello world, or I can start using a blueprint. What is a blueprint, right? The blueprint will create the function for you, okay? But let me just use a hello world, for example. I'm going to give a name to my function, demo. I'm giving demo hello world. And runtime, you see what are the different languages it supports. Just give me a minute. Let me just take my pen out, right? So now people who works with .NET, Go, Java, Node.js, Python, Ruby can all develop their functions and code in AWS, right? So all these are supported for you. Okay, so I'm going to choose Python. That's my favorite. So I'm just choosing Python 3.9, and these are the type of infrastructure you want to run. So you know that x86 64 is 3264-bit, right? ARM64 is a 64-bit application. I'm just leaving this one, which infrastructure this code will run. Okay, I'm going to run the default one, which is x86 64. Okay, I'm not touching anything else, right? I'm just saying I gave my name, I gave a runtime, I'm creating this function. So let it create. So yeah, Lambda function is something, a few lines of code which can be executed quickly without really creating infrastructure, compute, platform, software, patching, nothing, right? As you could see, I just have a function got created, So the function, if we come back here, this is my code. A few lines of Python code, that's simple lambda.py, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just print return hello from Lambda, right? So I'm just going to say hello from Raj. Okay, I don't have anything else, right? It's a very simple, 8 lines of code if you take, including spaces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy this, okay? Then I have to run. How do I run? There is option for testing it, okay? You see the test here? For testing it, everything a Lambda function need to have a trigger point, right? Trigger is something, which starts that function, right? This is going to be a manual trigger. So I'm going to use a manual trigger, so configure a test event. My event name is demo. There's no input in my function, right? You remember there's no input, right? So I'm just going to give the default one because my function just prints hello world, doesn't take any input. I'm just going to create a testing event. I got a testing event created. Okay. You can see this testing event, demo event is here. So I'm going to run this program. Just click on run. So the 8 lines of code has run without me creating a computer, allocating a disk space, allocating a compute, a RAM, everything. And I'll be billed only for these 1.2 milliseconds. That's approximately build duration would be 2 milliseconds, right? So I have well run, I'll be billed only for that 2 millisecond time limit, and I'll be billed only for that, 37 MB of data. That's it, nothing else. Okay. So this is what I was talking about. Deploying, creating code is as easy in the cloud. There is nothing you need to set it out. Okay. So this is just a small example, just to give an idea how easy to develop and program our application in AWS. This is called microservice. We'll talk about more in different applications as well. There are different ways that you can work with programming in AWS. This is just one of it, like a Lambda, a function as a service, right? Okay. So that's it now. So we have almost 7 minutes for any question and answer. Even I'll stay back a little later as well. But do ask me some questions, right? I'm going to give my LinkedIn profile to you later so that you can have a look. Okay. You can connect with me. We can talk more about cloud, any new technologies, artificial intelligence, machine learning as well. I'm happy to collaborate and work with you more. Okay. Right. So I'm ready just for any question. Please do let me know if you have any questions about the course, or what is the cloud, any question, generic, like how do I go about it, how do I start learning cloud, what are the materials available, you can just go and ask me right now. Right, you don't have any questions coming up, so what's it for dinner? So maybe you can You can help me out. Let me ask questions, right? Yes, Saiteja. The AWS free account is for everyone. You will get 12 months free tier account. Okay, that we call as a free tier or tier. Free tier account, you'll get 12 months free access to limited set of AWS services. That is good enough for you to start learning AWS without spending 1 rupee, right? But one thing you need to do is you need to create, while creating the account, you need to give a credit card or debit card information, right? To create your account. There'll be a charge of 2 rupees or 3 rupees will be charged, but that will be reverted back as well. Okay. But you need to have a credit card or a debit card entered as in the payment information when you're creating a code. Right. So I'm a mechanical engineer and I have a good knowledge on Python. Can I start a career in AWS? Come on, Magaraja. All of my colleagues are from non-computer background, but I'm from computer background, but 80% of my team is from non-computer background. Okay. So even from commerce, biotechnologies, they are from there, right? So they are a very good cloud architect. They're developers right now, right? It's all about takes your own interest to ensure consistency in reading and developing yourself is what needed. Doesn't matter. You can definitely start a career in AWS. Ranjit, that's all platforms are same in process. All cloud forms platforms are same in their way of working, right? As I said, as infrastructure as a service, your infrastructure as a code, right? IAC. So they all works in a common principle, right? But depends on like which cloud is a market leader and which cloud has got more job openings for you. That is what you need to research and find out. My guess is AWS, followed by Azure, and then after GCP. That's the market trend now. Even the Oracle and Intel clouds are picking up, but that's very limited.
Sir, good evening. My name is Ramesh. I am from Bangalore.
Yes, Ramesh. I'm also in Bangalore, buddy. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'm my experience, overall experience, telecom industry, technical background. I would like to do solution architect, AWS solution architect.
Okay.
I'm not interested in developer. Are you teaching a solution architect, sir?
Well, I am doing it. You can reach out to Uptaught, right? They'll be able to help you with the batch and timings as well.
Okay.
Definitely, yes.
Okay, sir. Actually, by mistake, I joined in this.
That's all right. This is a very common generic session. What is a cloud and how we can judge journey? If you're not a developer associate, like you can talk to them and find out, the different batches going on for our solution architect associate as well.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Cheers. Rajit is asking a very important question. What are the basic knowledge to start AWS career? Skill environment. There is nothing called a skill and things, Ranjit. One thing which I told, right? So you need to start learning Python. That is one recommendation from my side, right? Even so, you can start from zero. I'm absolutely fine with it, right? So what you need to know is a basic understanding on how a programming will work is required. Okay, so if you have any one programming knowledge, it will be easier for you to start developing applications, but otherwise also fine. We can start learning everything from scratch, right? You could see that a lot of people have AWS have something called restart program, where they offer the training people without even having a college and degree. They are able to scale up in the cloud and they are able to get jobs in cloud without having an actual degree. People have started picking up cloud and they started doing a lot of things. Right. And Gajanan is asking, I'm working on a Java project which laterally will be deployed on AWS. So need to understand AWS Developer Associate. So that's what I told, right? So the AWS Developer Associate focuses on how do you implement solutions? How do you develop solutions on AWS? That is what. So you probably will have more hands-on coding, right? Across the session, they'll teach you what are the different ways that different services you utilize and how do you code them, right? Using SDK, CDK, and CLI, or even running these solutions. How do we code? How do I write code? So how do I use these libraries is what they will teach you. So if you're working on a Java project, for example, the Java can be run on a EC2, the Java can be run on a container, right? We have services called something like an ECS, and EC2 is a machine, the Linux, we can run services over there. We have something called Elastic Beanstalk, where your application can be deployed and run there as well. We'll be looking at all this aspect when we come back, start diving into this one. Hope that's helpful, Gajanan. As there's set 9, I'll wait for a couple of quick questions. Otherwise, we can wrap it up for today. Thanks for joining, especially taking a step towards learning cloud. That's very important. I was there in 7 years before I decided to learn cloud one day. So that made a lot of difference to my career. But all the very best for your endeavors, whatever you do. And there is a chat box there with Uptaught. You can just write your queries to them and they will forward that to me where I can answer them. But otherwise, all the very best. Have a great evening. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
Like, subscribe, and press the bell icon.